These are some Dinar Guru updates, starting off with Mountain Goat. There is some amazing news, and it falls directly in line of what we should be expecting at this point in time. We all should realize by now the IQD is no longer pegged to the dollar. When I reviewed Dr. Shabibi's 2011 plan of the process to reinstate the Iraqi dinar, that part of the process would be to depeg for the dollar, then watch for inflation. This period of adjusting for inflation could take a few days, weeks, or even months. We must now settle down and relax while we watch the process play out. Frank26 says, what is the rate? And that they will leave their borders and be done with the internal float. 1 to 1. How long will it float externally into the markets in the currency reform? Frank says, I don't know. I don't care. Why? I only have 1,000,000 dinar. Oh, I care why I have a lot of dinars. For those of you who have a lot of dinars, they're going to be paying attention to this next phase. It will be well managed and well controlled in the float. Sandy Ingram's CBI announced Iraq will do business with China using Chinese currency. This is an attempt the Central Bank of Iraq is saying to stabilize or help stabilize the IQD. Sampson article quote, an economist expects third package from the central bank to reduce the dollar, unquote. Sampson says third package of decisions powerful. Mark Zevi at PDK, they are talking about having the new value in the budget, and they have made alterations in the new budget for a new value in it. It is believed to be a higher value. The budget is being presented this week. The chatter in the street is indeed 1 to 1 and then afloat. Pay attention because this is important. I do not think this is what we're going to see over here. Mark Z goes on to say, I am still hearing it's going to be a complete reinstatement or revaluation. Perhaps they're going to do this in markets there on the streets and quickly let it float up to the desired level. We shall see. But that is the chatter. It's been overwhelming over the last few hours out of Iraq. Based on the news from Iraq, I hope our exchanges will start sometime this upcoming week. It's looking good and the chatter is overwhelmingly good. This is extremely exciting. All right, Pimpy says with a strong economy and the gold reserves are up and the foreign currency reserves are up, there's no reason for Iraq to not have a stronger exchange rate once you can start providing more jobs. You can start redoing infrastructure, but it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to see no presto huge jump in the exchange rate. It's going to go up in increments. Frank26 article quotes Sudanese advisor, central bank reserves are subject to guidelines regarding diversification between currencies, unquote. Frank says diversification between currencies because the IQD is about to float against many foreign currencies. This is currency reform education. This is explaining the external float to the Iraqi citizens. Militiaman says it's been 20 years they've had this process going. Now they're finally getting to that change. If we can't see it now, we probably never will, but at this stage of the game, I'm a believer that they're telling us, they did tell us there's no going back. This process is underway. Right, Breitling says it's black and white. Iraq picked the right guys. They picked us. They're going to stay with us. They're not going to go with BRICS. They're not going to go with Asia. They're not going to go with EU. They're going to stay with the biggest massive system in the world where they can get capital. If they need to raise money through the IMF, they're going to stay with those guys because Europe doesn't have any money to lend out. China doesn't have any money to lend out. If they do lend it out, it's not worth the risk for them. Frank26 article quote, an economist expects a third package from the central bank to reduce the dollar. Unquote. Frank says there will be a third package of decisions for the central bank to reach the parallel price rate of 2% ratio between the official and commercial price. The decline will face resistance from traders, speculators, importers of goods, and stakeholders. The external float with a plus or minus of 2 to 3%. All right, Pimpy question, if they remove the zeros from the currency, what will happen to the old currency? Is it only the 25,000 note? Pimpy says, I'm sure we'll have time to go ahead and swap our currency out. You just can't screw over a lot of people who are legitimately holding on to the Iraqi dinar. If it were to happen, the CBI would give us a window of opportunity in which to go ahead and make the exchange. All right, Mountain Goat says the Central Bank of Iraq launched the second package of reforms. In a remarkable statement, the Central Bank of Iraq announced a plan to allow trade with China in Chinese yen instead of dollars in an apparent attempt to improve access to foreign currency, reduce dependence on the dollar. Mountain Goat says we can see this as a good news, also bad news, as it may lead to complications if the CBI does not manage it correctly. Would Iraq sell oil for yen? If Iraq did make this move, this would certainly push them even more to reinstate the dinar as an international currency once again, but only if the CBI can control these new currencies. We just have to wait and watch. It won't be long before we see what happens. And lastly, Mark Zevia at PDK, quote, in order to prevent the movement of cash through borders and ports that exceeds what is specified in instruction from the central bank of 10K in dollars, the Compton security authorities follow up and inspect vehicles that pass borders to prevent smuggling, take legal actions in coordination with the central bank while providing the banks with amounts discovered and their sequence number. Why is this important? One of the things we were told is we would see right on the cusp of this change in value was a closing of their financial borders. They have now done this electronically and physically. In my opinion, this is enormous news coming out of Iraq. I am more than a little excited. I am extremely excited about the news coming out of Iraq.